And he says, I'm with J. Cole, and he's a haircut. He's flown into the country, the barber that normally cuts him in the country, they are basically not able to get through to him. Can you come cut his hair?
Wow.
I'm like, okay, cool. So I go and cut his hair. I end up cutting his hair a few times. I think it's funny enough, don't hold me to this, but I think I'm actually the last person to cut his hair.
Really? Oh, that's right. He's got the long hair now. Yeah.
I think I'm actually the last person to cut his hair.
Wow.
Which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
After you, he's like, I'm never getting a haircut again. Oh, man. You can't put that on the website.
You're listening to Board with Nelly.
Welcome back to another edition of the Board with Nelly podcast. Today I'm joined by Mark McIver. Is that how I say your last name?
Correct.
He is a talented businessman, barber, author, countless other titles. His business, Slider Cuts, is based out of London, and he has clients like Lebron, Anthony Joshua, Stormzy, J. Cole. You may have also seen him on various adverts for Nike, Facebook, GQ. Anything else I'm missing that you would want to add to that?
Yeah, just various other things.
So, first of all, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you. My podcast has kind of become career finding-esque, so I'm interested in talking to people that are passionate about what they're doing. You're passionate about, being a barber, so I want to know kind of where that came from, your childhood and stuff like that.
The passion for barbering came from, I don't know where the inception was, but I just know that I used to like watching people's haircuts on TV. I just used to look at people's haircuts. Maybe it's because I wasn't getting haircuts, but I just remember just in the 90s when I was like, when I was about 5 till the age of, whenever 15, which is my 90s era for me. I just used to see all these styles on TV, like just of people with different haircuts. And I just used to be looking at them and thinking, oh, I like that haircut. I'd love to have that haircut. And because we didn't have money to go to the barbershop, I was getting haircuts at home from my mum, and we were just getting it all taken off. So I think that stretched or expanded my love for hair, because it's that thing which you want, which you can't have.
Sure. Just
like sweets or chocolate, whatever it is, if you can't have it, it becomes bigger in your head.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's what happened with me. So I was just always looking at people's haircuts. So when I got the opportunity when I was about 13, 14 to pick up the clippers myself, because my mum and my older brothers were still cutting my hair, I was like, I'm just going to try it myself, because we ain't got the money to go to the barbershop. All these people in my school have good haircuts, and I want that haircut, or those haircuts. So I just tried it, and I picked up the clippers and I tried it myself, and it went wrong.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But you just kind of continue.
You gotta start somewhere.
And it just slowly just got better and better and better and better. And I, became like my local area barber when I was about 16, 17. And then when I was 18, I got an internship into a barbershop, and that's when my professional career started.
That's beautiful. What did your kind of family think of this career path?
Well, they didn't think anything of it, because when I started cutting hair, I was doing it around college. So I was working before college, after college. So it was basically, you could say, a part-time job.
Side gig, kind of?
Yeah, so nobody thinks anything about a part-time job, because it's just wherever you're working, it's just what you're doing around your studies. And when I finished college, I decided I didn't want to pursue acting anymore.
Is that what you studied in college?
I was doing performing arts, so it was a little bit of everything, a bit of acting, dancing, radio,
wow,
singing, just a bit of everything.
Fun, yeah, that's fun, yeah.
But it was mainly focused, like in probably about 80% of it was acting. And I decided I didn't want to pursue that. So I was like, okay, do you know what I'll do? I will keep cutting hair until I figure out what I want to do. So it was never a thing which my family, mama, who, thought anything of, because it wasn't my career choice at that time.
But when you think about it, it's like a way more, I mean, there's way more opportunity in being a barber than it is those other things. Those are so like very small amount of people get into TV and have success and that kind of stuff. But everyone needs a barber. Like that's not going to go anywhere for the next 1,000 years.
Yeah. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
Then a few years later is when I decided actually barbering is the career. I think when I was like 23, I had done like a social work course, foundation to social work. I didn't want to do that. I'd done a personal training course. I didn't really want to do that as well. And I just came to realize actually barbering is the thing I want to do, and fortunately for me, I was taking it serious that whole time. So even though I wasn't sure that it was going to be my career, I still took it serious like it was the career I was pursuing for life. So when I decided I wanted to do barbering, I didn't have to change anything or do anything new. I just continued doing what I was doing.
Right. It's interesting, like, because everyone's kind of first, let's say, career path choices are kind of based about what their parents think, whereas the side passion is usually based on what you're actually excited in. And then some people figure out how to convert that side passion to an actual career path, and some people maybe go into something they didn't really necessarily want, and then later on in life they discover that. So how was that transition from, kind of doing it part-time to fully going in and doing it full-time? Did you like it as much? Were you kind of worried that maybe you did pick the wrong career path or, things like that?
No, I didn't think I picked the wrong career path. I think what was fortunate about being a barber was also the flexibility. So little things like when I decided to do a course on social work and I was doing it in the evenings, I had to finish work an hour early. But being a barber is kind of like, you've got that flexibility to finish work an hour early and go and do it. And the same thing for, my personal training course. I had to finish work 15 minutes earlier to go do the evening course at night. But being a barber, the flexibility was there. So it wasn't kind of like this, how can I say, transition. It was kind of like I was doing everything at the same time.
All right. You were just so busy then, I imagine.
It was busy, but it's just kind of like whatever I wanted to do, I could just do alongside. And I was always doing barbering, as I said, to like the best of my ability. So it was never a thing which the mistake a lot of people make, because I always have this thing like whatever you're in, do properly and do to the best of your ability. And then if you want to quit it, stop it, whatever it is, even like I write about this in my book,
yes.
Even if you're in a relationship, I'm always like this, be in a relationship fully. If you don't want to be in a relationship anymore, leave the relationship. But while you're in it, be in it. Because the thing is, we make emotional decisions a lot in life. And it's kind of like, I don't like this person anymore. Or I don't like this job no more. So you kind of drop off and you don't treat it with the respect maybe it deserves because you're in it. And then suddenly, a couple months later or a year later, you think to yourself, actually, I want to be with this person. Or I want to pursue this job. But you've just wasted valuable time of good investment because you were thinking based on your emotions. So I always have this thing, which is like, if you're in it, be in it properly. Even if your heart's not in it, do what you're supposed to do in that thing that you're in. And that's why I said I was so fortunate when in my barber career, because when I decided I want to be a barber, there was no transition. There was no kind of like, okay, get your thinking cap on. Okay, treat this seriously. Okay, do this now, because I was doing it anyway.
Yeah. Switching career paths or going to something else is another tricky thing, because if you do discover that you don't like something, the natural thing you want to do is quit right away. But it's not always that easy. You should always have like a plan how to transition. If you know you're kind of falling out of love, don't just jump out of a boat with like, no raft or anything. Figure out how you can transition safely. So you obviously knew that you could do this and you were enjoying it, and there's money to be made. It's a career path, right? When did the other aspects of this come into play? Content and Instagram and stuff like that.
Well, that came from, social media coming out one. Facebook came out, and then it was, Twitter. I remember when everybody was jumping on Twitter, and I said, "Oh, I've got nothing to say, and there's nothing that anybody cares to hear about from me, so I'm not going on Twitter, even though everybody was on it."
And now there's everyone on there with actually nothing to say. Like now it's 10 times worse.
Yeah. But I was like, I've got nothing to say, so I'm not going on Twitter at the time. And then Instagram came out, and I was like, oh wow, a photo sharing app. that, you can post pictures. And I was like, well, I can post haircuts.
Of course.
But actually, if I go one step back, before even Instagram and all of that, I remember I set up a website for myself, which was, I can't remember how long. I'm 37 now, so this is
You're making it seem like you're 90, man. You're not that old. Come on.
Well, about 14 years ago, I set up a website for myself, right? And that was the start, you could say, of my online, you could say, presence.
Sure.
Because no other barber had a website.
Of course, yeah.
I was like one of the first in the UK, outside of like the really big brand name chains. But even as like a solo barber, no one had websites. Shops never had websites, So I was one of the first people. And that was just because I thought of myself as a business. I remember saying, oh, I'm a business, so I guess I should have a website. There was no kind of like, sometimes I wish maybe I could say I planned it because I knew this was going to happen, that was going to happen. And it was like, no, it was just as simple as businesses have websites. I'm a business, I should have a website. So I started getting all of this kind of traffic to myself through that website. So I always had this business brain of kind of like treating it like a business and seeing myself as a business. So then, when Twitter came out, I didn't see how business-wise that could benefit me or what I had to say. So I didn't use it. Then Instagram came out. So I was like, I can put my pictures up, thinking as a business. I'm not thinking about, me personally. I'm thinking always about Slider Cuts, the business.
I got you.
So I did that, posted pictures. Then, as the app started developing, I remember at first, I started posting, and I remember seeing people with bigger followings and more engagement. And I was wondering, how come these barbers, are doing that? So I went onto Google and I typed in how to use Instagram. I started reading all these tips that people were giving on how to use Instagram, I developed with the apps, they brought in videos. So I started doing videos because I was like, okay, well, let's do some videos. And I remember I hired a videographer, and I was paying him a retainer every month to film me and make videos out of my haircuts. And this was like early, literally when Instagram just switched over to videos. And especially in the UK, nobody was doing that.
That is crazy, yeah. I imagine.
So I was like one of the first.
You said one of your mistakes was a booking app. I don't know if you ever go super into detail, but I'm kind of curious to learn more about that. You didn't want to, get help for a booking app, and then...
Oh, no. So the mistake was that I was I wanted to create a booking app because I guess saw a need for it. And I was like, you know what? I've got all these ideas, and I was looking at the booking apps which were around, and these booking apps never had all of these ideas that I had. So I was ahead, you could say, of a lot of these booking apps. So I was like, you know what? I need to make my own one. That was one. And the second reason why I was making my own booking app was because I was in this place where I was like, if I see myself as a big brand, even if you're not that big brand yet, but I said, if I see myself as a big brand, then you need to behave like a big brand. And I was a little bit misinformed, you could say. But so I said, I remember I used to always say this in my head, Mercedes wouldn't hire out they would have their own booking system. You wouldn't go to Mercedes and suddenly you go to book now.
I see where you're going
and then
with
it goes to another page.
Yeah.
And it goes to this other person's, and I remember saying to myself, if you see yourself as a big brand, then you behave like a big brand. All the elements of a big brand should be there. So I said, I need to make my own booking app.
Isn't that opposite of what those brands do? They literally just hire out whoever to do that stuff for them now?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying.
I was like, okay. Making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, so I started building this app. And the thing is, the app was going well because, my ideas were ahead. But about 2 years into building this app, because also I didn't realize how long it would actually take, this booking app, and all of the complications that come with it. All these other apps now were catching up with my ideas, whether or not they'd heard it from me, because some of them actually I had given them these ideas. There were companies which I'd spoken to before.
Oh,
and I was like, you should do this, you should do that. So whatever happened, either way, they had caught up. And I remember being in a place where I was halfway through the app and I spent £30,000 on it. And I still had another like £30,000 to £40,000 to spend on it. And I looked at these other apps, or this other app in particular, and I was like, wow, this is kind of like level on my ideas right now. And they're still pushing forward, and they look at it quicker. And I said, you know what? I think I need to jump out the plane right now and just, pop the parachute before I invest more money and time, and I can see where it's going. And that's why I always tell people it's also good to be honest with yourself and know, just know when things
know your limits,
right.
kind of, right? Know where you're good at, what you're good at, and what you're not, maybe.
Yeah. So I
30,000 pounds seems like a lot. Like, when was this? Like, was this a big investment, obviously, for you at the time?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, right.
I didn't have that money. I took the money off my credit cards.
Right.
Holy shit. I was paying that money back for a long time. That was about 4 years ago.
Holy shit. That's wild, yeah. But you were hoping for a bigger return on that, obviously. You wouldn't have to hire, a receptionist and all this other people. And
yeah, I was hoping for that. But yeah, that failed. And rightfully so. And then I realized power and as to why you should collaborate instead of trying to go in everything yourself. A lot of people in this generation now, and I'm not even talking about young people, I'm just talking about all of us in this generation are caught up in this whole be a boss, be the owner of everything. And it's just kind of like, it's a bad mentality, because you should actually partner with those who know better. And that's actually better to do than to be the full owner of everything. I learned that.
What's that expression? You save a penny, you lose a pound, or something like that? Or I can't remember. But
yeah.
You're trying to cut corners because you think you're going to save these pennies, but in reality, those actions are going to cost you a lot more in the future.
Oh yeah.
And I actually did. Yeah, and I did see that also on your LinkedIn. You were asking for someone to help you with your LinkedIn stuff. This was a while ago, but you've taken that to other aspects of your business, obviously.
Yeah, I get. And the thing is, I was never prideful, funny enough, about getting help. But for some reason, when it came to this, I was kind of like, I should own it. I'm supposed to. But partnership, teamwork.
Yeah, of course.
Teaming up with those who know better is the thing people should do. And that was a valuable lesson I learned, that, just hire out.
Right, of course. It seems so obvious now, but, in life you need to make these mistakes to kind of get that picture. It's interesting that you had a kind of media background, and then you end up, obviously, as a barber, but you're making content around it. It seems like a kind of perfect thing for you, right? Are you enjoying the video aspect, social media aspect, or is that kind of a thing you're letting other people do and you're kind of, okay, I have to do this as part of the business?
I think that I've always said I've been fortunate, because the career I gave up when I was younger has come, full circle around to, all the elements of things I've learned. So even when people talk about, camera presence, I learned that from acting. That isn't just something, I'm doing. I understand, looking in the camera. I understand, staring at camera. I understand pacing. I catch myself talking too fast. Is that clear enough? So all of these things come from learning acting. And even I remember the things I gave up when I was younger, the whole acting and performing. I wanted to be like a counselor. I didn't go down that career either. I wanted to do youth work. I didn't fully go down that career. But what strangely has happened now in my career is I gave those things up, became a barber, and now I do youth work. I mentor young people. We have young people working in the shop. We do outreach schemes. I do counseling to more than people would believe. Some of the things that people tell me in my chair that are going on in their lives. So we're talking about anything from, death in people's lives, to murder, to people involved in it, to people it's happened to sickness, to cheating, to, just in some of the things you hear from in the chair, people will be surprised, and you have to counsel people through that, so it's almost like, oh, I'm doing the counseling anyway. And then when it comes to the performing and the whole camera stuff and everything, it's like, well, I'm back here again. I'm in front of the camera and I make content. I do public speaking, and I've written a book, even though that wasn't something I did as a kid. But I'm back here and even more and doing even more than I was doing back then. You
can't see. Does it feel surreal to be kind of full circle doing these things after coming back to them and actually using them skills? Because a lot of people will maybe abandon their first career path with nothing crazy to take away from it. But it seems like, it kind of worked out all nicely together.
And what's funny, and I can't say what this is because I'm strict orders. What's funny is the other thing I forgot is a week ago, 2 weeks ago, no, maybe 2 weeks ago, I got asked to be in a film.
No way. Awesome.
Yeah. It's a film and it's a proper film. I can't actually talk about it in the slightest.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's good. That means it's juicy.
Because I haven't accepted it or declined it yet. They've just given me the script to read over it to see if I want to be in it, if I want to do it. That's all I can actually say about it.
How does that, does someone, I guess I can't really ask you too many questions about this, but I'm now more fascinated about how you actually get a role on this thing, right? But yeah, it's kind of wild if you think about it.
I guess this is the thing. Another thing, I'm not plugging my book, but I am plugging my book, Shaping Up Culture.
I've ordered it. It hasn't arrived yet. I ordered it like 2 weeks ago. It's someone from the UK really messed up my order. But yeah, hopefully it gets here.
But I always say, I talk about it in my book. One of the chapters is you're always in an interview. So the way you carry yourself online, in real life, someone's interviewing you. So you never know what opportunities are around the corner, what opportunities are in front of you, because someone's interviewing you. You never know how many opportunities you've lost because of the way you've acted, the way you've behaved. So that's why I always tell people that the person you want to be, and this is a quote from my book, the person you want to be when the right person is around is the person you should become, period. Because you never know when the right person is actually around or the right person is watching you.
I understand. That's clever, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, so basically just work on yourself. Don't kind of be like, oh, this is the whole thing, like, my children will do it. My children will be messing around and, I walk into the room and you see them.
It's like Toy Story that the toys go back to...
yeah. It just kind of like, all right, daddy's coming, so let's start acting right. But you don't know, I might be looking at you through the window.
Sure.
So I've seen you walking around.
Right. And you're a person that spends all his time with other people. If there is a better judge of character, I don't know what the other, maybe a psychologist, but that profession seems like you probably have the best judge of character because you've just dealt with so many characters your whole life.
I guess so.
Right? Maybe I'm overthinking here, but it seems like you're in a place where you're talking to people all day, interacting with different people from all different walks of life. So you're getting a little bit of kind of, okay, what is the human psychology, or why they make this decision? Why are they thinking this? Why are they, that's fascinating, right? Yeah. So when the business kind of started taking off, how did you start scaling it? How did you want to grow it even more?
Well, business for me took off gradually, so I just kept on pressing forward to I used to always tell people, press forward to where you can see, because, if you can see 20 feet in front of you, then walk 20 feet. But what you'll find is your vision doesn't stop your vision continues to see 20 feet in front of you. So if you take 2 steps forward, you're not going to see 18 feet in front of you now. You're going to still see 20 feet in front of you.
Right. I gotcha, yeah.
So just keep pressing forward and you start realizing that a lot more doors will be opened and a lot, your vision will open up a lot more than you realize. And that was me for business. I remember some of the stuff I'm doing now, this wasn't a plan. I didn't know, but what I did was I pressed forward to where I could see. And as you get closer to things, you start realizing, oh, right, this is not the end of the road. There's a lot more there.
So you have to have a little bit of belief or trust someone that's going to tell you that, because, it's not as obvious or maybe intuitive. It's there. You just have to keep moving it, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense. It's not as clear as it might seem, right?
No, it's not. We just got to keep moving. And that's why even when I couldn't see it, and I used to say this to people, I think about 5 years ago, I used to say to people, look, I don't know what's fully coming, but I'm just going to keep moving because I know the way the world works, right? And the way life has worked, right, for me, there's so much more than you realize. Basically, you got to come out yourself and realize that you're not as smart as you think you are, and you don't know everything.
Sure.
So the world is much bigger than you, and there's much more to this world than you can see. So just keep walking forward and you start realizing there's a lot more you can see.
Right. And if you're using logic or common sense, talk to the people that were in your position and they'll tell you that. And then there really isn't much to not believe after that. If you get a bunch of people saying, hey, listen, it works out. If you just keep working at it and keep going forward, it'll work out for you. It's just how it is. And they trust you, perfect. You can set them on that path. So is that what kind of, when you say counseling, what kind of stuff are you doing in the shop?
Well, there's different things from, the everyday, day-to-day talking to clients about whatever they want to talk about, whether it's football or sports.
It's not always a serious, life-changing conversation. It's just...
Yeah, to serious things, like, where it be something's happened, someone comes into the chair and they say, my partner passed away, my wife, my sister, my brother, someone got murdered. I just found out, this person's sick, they're terminal. Like my girl cheated on me,
Is that a lot? Is that a lot for you to bear, to have on all these things on your kind of conscious, and people talking about these really tough topics?
It is difficult. Obviously, the tragic ones are really difficult, especially when you know people. So sometimes it's like there's a customer, the customer's passed away through different means. Through the customer was murdered, to the customer was in an accident, the customer got sick and passed away, and you have to deal with that. Or then there's kind of like the customers that talk about other people you might know, like their mom. Like I remember one story that really hit me. Like it really, like even if I think about it now, it's like a hard situation. Even though I think about it now, it's hurtful, should I say? Because I know this. Yeah. Because this woman used to bring her son into the shop when he was like a young child, like baby type thing, right? So every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, for the last, you say, I'm cutting hair in the shop. Let's say 19 years now. This happened about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. So let's say 15 years. I'm seeing this woman all the time. I've seen her son grow up, and she was so. Like, when somebody like was so into her child,
sure,
like taking care of him, like sometimes we say to her, like leave him alone, sort of smothering him, right. Really friendly woman. And I remember just, hearing, and because he got older now, he was able to come to the shop by himself now, because he's like 15 or something like that. I just remember, and I think for a period of time he stopped, and just hearing that, his mom passed away. And I remember it really hit me. She had cancer and she passed away, and it really hit me because I felt so bad for him. And then it's almost like I had a connection with that woman, even though that connection was based in the barbershop, even though sometimes you see her on the street because she lived in that area. And it really just hit because it's like, and then, for who the particular person was as well, it was like, I'm speaking to him and I'm like, is there anyone else around? And he's been put in a situation, I don't want to talk about his business, but he's been put in a situation now where, I don't think his dad's around. He's had to take over her place. He's
a really hard spot, right?
And it's kind of like, how are you doing this? And you're trying to study and trying to finish college or uni, but you got this house and you got bills and you got this and you got that. And it's kind of like, you're not supposed to be in this situation. You're just not supposed to be. And I'm trying to help how I can help with him. And it's just kind of like, you have those type of situations. And it's like, and I guess, that's where almost like the community should be, stepping up, do your part of what you can do. And that's where kind of like it stretches further than barbering, and it's kind of like,
You realize...
This time I wasn't cutting hair either. It's just, I heard about it and I contacted him. And so you have those type of situations there where, you grow with people, you get to celebrate in people's triumphs, but you also have to mourn in people's, almost like not failures, but like in tragedy, in like death and things like that. You celebrate when people get married, but then you're also mourning when people die. And this is kind of like what comes with the job.
Yeah, when someone is dealt a really shitty hand in life, it feels like, there should be a system where everyone can kind of come together, like, like a group of ants and help him whatever way we can. And is that what inspires you to kind of continue doing more, philanthropy related stuff? And I remember you had a story about 2 gangs and how you kind of helped them see eye to eye. I was wondering, I don't know how much of that story you can share. Basically I was cutting
members of 2 different gangs in the area I was working in, and I knew both of them. And also because as a barber, especially when you've been doing it for so long, you become like this unofficial uncle to these boys because, they see you all the time. And, you were there when they were, crying about their first haircut.
Right.
Now they're big gangsters, but, they still see you as like an uncle. So they show you respect.
Right.
And I always used to think that, it's weird. The guys which are in the gangs and things like that, they don't really respect the legitimate working people, just the 9 to 5, they just don't really respect them. They really just respect all gang-related stuff, but for some reason, they respect barbers. And I used to say that, as a barber, you get respected by the legitimate world, bankers, whoever it is, they just, you're a working person like them. But then also the people which are on the roads and in the gang, they also respect you as well. So you're
in the middle. Yeah.
So we're in a position where we can do a lot and help, through networking, connecting people and talking to people. So yeah, these gangs were coming in and I heard about the beef and things that were going on, stabbings, all these things there. So I'm talking to them saying, why have you got beef? And I'm just, over a period of time, just constantly talking to them about, is it worth it? It's not worth it. I said, in about 5 years, you're probably not going to care about this. They used to be like, no, trust me. We will. And I'm like, no, trust me, you will. And just all the time, just speaking to them, even to the point where most of them didn't even realize what they were having problems about. Like, I remember having to tell them because I had found out the root of the problem. Right. And it was over, literally.
They forgot what you remembered.
Yeah, it was over like someone phoned me. No, because what happens is in these gang things is, let's say me and you have a problem, we have an argument and we have a falling out. All of the people, the younger people are now have that, beef with you. And all of your younger people now have that beef with me. Now, they might know exactly why me and you are beefing, but then the younger people to them don't know why me and you are beefing, but they just know that.
Right, we hate those guys. Yeah,
right. But they don't know the root of it. They don't know why they're beefing. It's just, we're beefing it, and they just remember the last thing that happened. So when I even talk to them about it, they're like, yeah, but they're like, yeah, it's small, but it's gone too far now because that person stabbed this person, and that person did this, and that person did that. So I was constantly just talking to them, And what was funny is, because of the respect they had for the shop, there were times when the gangs were in the shop together and they did nothing. And they just did nothing because of the respect for the shop. And they, just that whole thing of like, they see you as an uncle. But then out on the street, their guns were being pulled on each other's, knives and things like that. But they come into the shop and suddenly...
The shop is holy ground. It's like, in a church, you don't fight in a church.
Yeah. So that happened. And I remember a while after, I just remember not hearing about it anymore. So I remember asking one of them, one of the main people in there, I said, yo, are you still got problems with those guys there? And he was like, nah. I was like, oh, for real? No. He's like, nah. I was like, why? What happened? Because no one told me anything. I was like, what happened? And he's like, you know what? I was just hearing what you're saying and I'm getting older and you know what? It's long. Like, what's the point of this? Yeah. And he's just like, yeah, I heard what you said to me. I was like, rah. In my head, I'm like, whoa! I didn't realize, that connected what I was saying. And then I spoke to someone else from the other gang, and I was like to them, yo, I heard that you guys aren't really beefing no more. I was like, what made you like willing to squash the beef? And they're just kind of like, yeah, do you know what? I kind of like, yeah, I heard what you're saying, and so on and so on. And I was just like, whoa! I did not. No one came to me and told me anything, but both parties. Over, because it wasn't like overnight.
Sure,
I don't want people to get the seat. We're talking about this could be me talking to them over a year and a half, 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And then suddenly they were like, yeah, they just called. Not like they were friends, but actually one of them was like, yeah, my man's cool. I remember one of them saying, yeah, my man's really cool. Yeah, I'm really cool with that guy now.
Whoa, like, yeah, that's huge.
Okay, cool.
We need barbers on like borders of nations that are like having disputes all over the world and need to have them sit down. We need to do this, but like on a large scale, This would be because this is how it starts. It starts off with a few people, and the next thing you know, it escalates. It's the barber relationship with its client. It's such a fascinating one because I feel like it's like an undercover psychologist kind of. Like, I'm sure if you ever tried to get those guys in a room together with a psychologist or whatever, it would never happen. Never. But if you can you're doing it kind of in a sneaky undercover way, and obviously gradually over time, I wonder if we could start training like psychologists to cut hair a little bit better and then get them into
training barbers.
or that. Either way. And then we get them into the shop, just for like a few hours, only for like the really bad situations like divorces, so you don't have to bring an attorney or gang wars or whatever it might be. They do like one shift a week. It's whatever their job is. They just do that one, but like they do a little extra. They do like a little more psychology work and
Yeah.
like, I feel like there's so much room to grow with like what you can do with your business. Like, you know, the content side of it, you know, there's a counseling side to it. What do you see kind of as the future of the business?
I think for me, the future of the business is, I think it's just growing. Like, you know, I'm fortunate right now. You know, I've got about 9 barbers in the shop, and majority of them are fully booked.
Wow.
Like, probably like the shop is like 90%, 95% booked up.
The one shop?
The whole shop, yeah.
Do you have more shops, or is it just one?
Oh, I have one shop.
One shop. Okay.
Yeah. You know, people keep pressing me about opening up another shop, but I'm not that eager, to be honest. Only because it's a lot of work.
I imagine, yeah.
It takes up a lot of time. And also for the last 12 years of my life, especially the last 12 years, I've been working very hard chasing the next thing. You know, that was from getting married. You know, marriage, you know, what, it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money, but it can cost you a lot of money. You know,
it usually does. It's if the ladies are listening, you can stop. You can, okay, now it costs a lot of money. It always costs money.
It costs money, you know, from doing that to buying my first flat that I was living in, to buying another place which I ended up renting out, to buying another place which is where I'm living now, to open up the shop which I have now. You know, over the period of years, it was like, as soon as like my first place I bought, as example, I had to borrow a lot of money. It took me about 2 years and 3-4 months to pay all the money back. So all the money that came in my life went straight back out to debts. And that happened for like over 2 years. So as soon as that...
Was that stressful?
Yeah, as soon as I paid my debt, I remember being like, whoa, I feel free. But then a few months later, I started looking at places and being like, okay, if I can do this, I can do that. And then suddenly I put myself in more debt, then so on and so on. So basically for the last like 12 years of my life, I've just been working, grinding, you know, just working hard. And I came to this place where it's like, you know, now Slider Cuts, the shop is really, it's doing well. It's established, you know, people are booked up. Everyone's like, oh, open up another shop. And I'm just like, that's going to be another few years of like grinding and working over hard and not sleeping and pressure on the brains and all that stuff there. And I had to ask myself the question, why am I doing it? What is the purpose of me opening up another shop? And the reality is, it's good. You know, my main purpose, to be honest, would be the fact that I'm able to give people jobs, because I like the idea of hiring people, especially who potentially are not in a walk of life that would make them this type of money, and being able to put them in a position they can make this much money and they can get married and buy a house and do whatever they want to do. You know, people from my local community, I just love the idea. That's one of my biggest achievements in my shop. It's not actually the big name and whatever it is. That is definitely good. I'm not playing Mr. Humble, but anyone who knows me knows that I love the idea that I'm able to employ people and the type of people I'm able to employ. Because I'm telling you, I've got about 20 people that work with me, from, you know, the 10 barbers and stylists to the 2 receptionists to my 2 assistants to the people that help me with my YouTube, my TikTok, my Pinterest, my LinkedIn.
Those are sincere relationships that last many years to come. Whereas like the celebrity stuff is cool, but it's very temporary. The other stuff feels, it's more fulfilling, right? It's just like, this is it gives you a bigger sense of purpose in life, kind of.
Definitely. And that's one of the reasons that would make me go open up another shop. But when it comes to the whole name thing, the reality is, and I think this is important for people to always know, I always tell people this, it's not negative, but because Slider Cuts is a big name now, it doesn't mean it's going to be a big name in 10 years or 20 years. Businesses come, businesses go, businesses work, businesses fail. Like, you know, your hope shouldn't be all in your business. It should be in what that business provides for you.
Right.
And if you start thinking like that, you start making more better decisions.
Yeah,
you know, because so it's like, what do I want out of life? And this is what I just had to ask myself, what do I want out of life? And it's kind of like, I want to be able to provide my children with better opportunities than I had, you know, let them have that net underneath them. So, you know, they can go and pursue the things which they want to pursue. I want to make life easier for them. You know, that's kind of like, you know, when you hear, maybe you might have been this person, but, you know, when you hear about people and it's like, you know, 18, 19, 20 years old. It's like, they passed their driving test and it's like, yeah, their dad or their mom bought them a car.
Oh, yeah, I wish.
I want to be able to do that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, I came to Canada when I was 7. We had nothing. I'm from Serbia, so I would love that. There's also, the problem with that is, and I always say this, it's like a bit of a double-edged sword, because you need to find a way to give them adversity without obviously overdoing it with adversity. So it's like, how do you find this balance? Because I don't know if without my childhood I'd have the successes that I'd have today. I don't know if I didn't have the battles I had, if I'd have the successes. So it's kind of like that, finding that balance when you actually do have the means, the money to help them with whatever they want, not to overdo it. So if you've already accumulated, let's say, a healthy amount of wealth that they can do whatever they want, okay, what's next for you? And like, how much of that do you give access to them, and how much do you strategically challenge them in their own way, right? Because they're not going to have the adversities you came up with. It's a very complex topic, right?
It is, and I thought about it a lot, right? And the conclusion I came to in this moment, this conclusion could change.
Okay, all right.
Was that for where we're coming from, like where you're coming from, when we come from poor backgrounds, immigrant backgrounds, we focus so much on adversity and poverty and struggle. We don't realize how much we do it. We focus so much on it that we feel like, by default, we should.
It's a necessity. Right.
Like we should, it's a necessity of life to have adversity. And the thing is, what we don't realize is everybody has adversities. They just look different.
Yes.
So one person could be mental, could be the richest person in the world, but their adversities is just all mental.
Yes.
You can't see it.
And their toughest adversity could be your toughest adversity and my toughest adversity are the same, regardless of what they are. So like it doesn't matter. Mine's not less valuable than yours or someone else's or whatever it might be.
Yeah. You could be in a better position than me. Yes, you could have clothing, you could have warmth, you could have a house, but we could be feeling the same thing with my poverty and your
immigration
privilege.
Or whatever. Yeah. Or okay, sir, privilege. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, and your privilege as example, but the stress you're feeling about whether it is the university or this job or this project or whatever it is can feel the same. Even though if we step outside ourselves, we can say, okay, cool, yes, this person technically is in a harder situation than you. But it doesn't mean if you're not stepping outside that, you might be feeling the same thing. You wouldn't logically say, yes, no, what I'm going through is harder than that person. No, you wouldn't say that, but it doesn't mean that you're not feeling that.
Yes, right. And it won't matter to them if I told them, you're your little problem. Ugh, I don't care. Like, that's weak. Or like, something like that. It won't matter. It won't help them.
Yeah, because even we can look at ourselves, and this is what I tell people. When you come from struggle, you think that you come through the deepest struggle. I'm like, well, no, we haven't.
Not even close.
People I know who've come out of war-torn countries where they saw their dad being murdered and then had to come over here to poverty to live on the streets and things like that. And it's kind of like, oh, yes, I went through hard times, but are my hard times as hard as that person's hard times? So when we're looking at people in front of us and we're always kind of like, they don't have hard times, they don't understand this, they don't understand that. Someone can say that about us.
Sure, of course, 100%. It's just like there's always someone smarter than you, but there's also someone that's always had a harder come up than you. There's so many people with so many different stories.
And that's why I came to realize that also that when it came to my children, when we come from these backgrounds, focus so much on believing that people need to go through this because we went through that. But if you actually study and look at most wealthy people, they come from wealth.
Right. Yeah, they're continuously.
And they continue it. And that sector of people continue it. So we're coming from a mindset of believing that the only way our children are going to be successful is if we put them through what we went through. No, we are the fortunate ones that have climbed out. Majority of the people in this bracket just produce wealth, and then they produce wealth, and then they produce wealth, and it just stays there. Because if it was to do with hardship, that means then majority of the world, every generation, it should be changing over. But it's not.
Yes. The only downside to that is the wealth is a factor, but like if they're becoming worse human beings along the generations, then because you have families of wealth, let's say like pharmaceutical companies, like they've passed on their riches from the past, 200 years. And that group of people has become wealthier, but like what they've done contributing to society, being good human beings has come down. So it's like, it's not a simple, There's no right or wrong answer in reality. Like it's whatever you make of the situation. That's why it's such a good and fun question to kind of discuss. But I get what you're saying.
That's why with my children, it's kind of like I want them to have a better life, you know. And
right.
you know, as I said, I'm not just going to put them through hardship for the sake of putting them through hardship, but I want them to appreciate life. I want them to understand, and I tell them this is not standard. Like we talk about, you know, me and my children, my oldest son especially, who's 5, we talk about things like, you know, I say we always talk about like, you know, like not everybody has a home, you know, like not everyone has shelter, not everyone has warmth, and he says that he's always like, so what are they going to do? You know, how are they going to get a house, or how are they going to be warm? He asks these questions, you know, children.
Very innocent, yeah, of course, yeah.
And I say, well, we can help them. You know, that's where we can. And I say to him, you know, I said to him, you know, you got all these toys. I said, you know, not everyone has toys. And I said, you want more toys, but I said, you are aware that, you know, not everybody. You go to people's houses, and they won't have any toys. And he's like, oh, you know. Or, you know, people's birthdays, they don't, you know, there's loads of children out there, they don't get these things, you know. And he's like, oh, you know, well, what are they going to do? And I said, well, this is the reason why I'm telling you that you have to give away your toys to them.
Right.
Because that's how they're going to get it. They're going to get it from us giving it to them. You know, I built this thing with him where I was saying to him, you know, you got all these toys for Christmas because you've got your uncles, you've got aunties, you know, which are doing all right in life. And I said to him, I want you to now start giving away some of your new toys. So not only your old toys, you know, let's give away some of the new ones as well to people, you know, who don't have it instead. So I think that's what I'm trying to like teach them. But the whole thing of like me trying to put them in hardship is like, no, I don't want to put you in hardship. What I want you to do is understand how privileged we are and how fortunate we are, and use the quote unquote wealth that, you know, we might have, or the things we have to help other people instead. But I'm not just going to put you through hardship and I'm not giving you anything. No.
Right. It makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
I want you to have, you know, that net and be comfortable. I want you to strive. But it's not even, and also just, it's not even about wealth for me. Like, this is why I'm saying the whole thing about opening up another shop. It's not actually about wealth for me. Because as I said, you could have this slider cuts thing, and it could be in 20 years, it could close down. Or people like, you know, say to me all the time, but you can pass it on to your kids. And I'm like, but my kids might not be interested.
Yeah. And once you're gone, it's like there's no guarantee that that's going to be used well, or that, you know, this whole like generational wealth thing is ludicrous. Like I don't understand. Like I get some extent of it, but like, dude, when you're dead, they might take your money and burn it all at the casino. Like, what the hell do you care? Like,
yeah. So, and also, hopefully, here's the thing as well. People don't know. I say to them, hopefully, if God willing, you know, live to an age, you're doing well, and you live to an age where your children have become adults. If you're coming from a level of like, forget wealth, you know, just I'll call it wealth, right? Whatever it is, you come from, not wealth, because it's not like you're doing okay in life. Then what you really should be doing for your children is educating them to give them the keys so that they can produce their own quote unquote wealth.
Yes.
You know, so they don't, you know, so you want to be able to facilitate them and give them a net underneath them that allows them to go study the things that they need to study. Because there are jobs out there, like being a psychotherapist, like being a psychologist, a counselor, that take about 5-6 years of life, right? And you can only do these jobs if you have someone who's actually sponsoring your life to live while you're doing this course. So that's why a job like that only goes to people who have money, because they have to come from money to be able to do that. The same thing with the fashion world. These jobs don't directly exclude certain demographics of people. No, it's the way they're set up that excludes you. Because when you have to work in a company for a year for free, how do you do that if you haven't got any money behind you? How does a poor person go into fashion and work for free for a whole year and not earn a penny? You don't. So it means that you come from money.
You have to be don't worry. You have to be one of those 1 in a million people, right?
Yeah, and this is what happens. So it's not like, so when people like, you know, want them to struggle, no, because instead what I do is I can help you, facilitate you to go into, let's say, be a therapist, a psychotherapist, whatever it is, right? And I will pay, you know, and help fund your life during that time so that you can have that career set up for you, you know. And that's kind of like, you know, and people act like that's not hard. It's not hardships, but it's not like it's easy. You know, it's not like studying is easy. It's not like all this work is easy. You know, so this is why when I tell people, you know, I used to come from working class background, you know, people working in a barbershop, you know, you still get loads of working class people, you know, being still working class to some degree, but I guess the situation I'm in life, I'm not really, but I'm still I'm still kind of working class by, you know.
I don't know what you got, but it's a great gig. You have a really cool job.
You know, whatever it is. I'm just telling people, like, you know, listen, let's like stop doing this, because it's a bad mindset to believe that, you know, no, my children have to struggle. They have to know, you know, our parents made it easier for us, because also we got to realize when we look at
my parents' struggles are much worse. Yeah,
they were much worse.
Yeah.
So imagine them saying, well, you know what, we were on the streets in Serbia, wherever it was, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, it's cool. So we're gonna put you on the streets so you understand.
right. Like, wait, I was just playing my Xbox. What the hell? I gotta go on the streets now? What the fuck?
You know, because even when my mom came over, we were homeless. When I was a kid, about 5 years old, we were homeless. We were made homeless. I'm not saying for long. It might have been for a day, 2 days. I can't remember. We got into a shelter anyway, especially back then in the 90s or late 80s. They took on a woman, 4 children, young children. We were in a shelter, so we were bounced around places. And it's like, look at that struggle that my mom not put us in, that struggle that we were in. Why would I want my children? My mom didn't want us scared. Yeah?
Of course.
She didn't want that.
Yeah. This conversation kind of went down this path. I like, this is why I like the podcast. We talk about random things, but another thing I kind of was curious also, because you were saying you worked a lot. You've worked many hours. You're working, I remember I watched some of your interviews that said you were working like 6 a.m. till 5 p.m., basically 6 days a week. There's also the trade-off there, right? Because you want to accumulate this wealth or this opportunity for your kids in the future, but then you're also sacrificing potentially a lot of time with them. So that when you said you want to open up another shop, I'm assuming that's another X hours on your week that you potentially could have had with your kids. So obviously, is that a big reason as well that these things are coming into question?
Yeah, that's definitely a big reason. So I'm just like, you know, we need to understand we make money, you know, as a mediator between you and the thing you actually want to provide for you, whether it's a home, shelter, food, clothing, maybe more luxury things, a holiday, whatever it is, right? So why do we just chase money past the things we actually want from it? And it's like, what do I want from it? I want to help make my children's lives better. Yep, I'm doing that at the moment. You know, I want to be able to spend time with my family and do things like, you know, be able to do outings with them, you know. So I just had to think to myself, imagine spending your whole life just working, you know, and you miss out on all of that time. You know, because, yeah, as I said, I was working like 5 a.m. till like, not even, it wasn't 6 to 5, it was like 4 or 5 a.m. till like 7 p.m.
Oh, shit, yeah. You didn't sleep.
You know, you know, and then, but because I wanted to be in my children's lives as well, it was weird it's hard to explain, but I was still fully, especially when I had my first son, when I just like one, more so now, but when I just had my first son, I was still fully there. It was weird to explain. I used to bring him to the barbershop with me. I used to take him on jobs with me. I'd have him on my back while I was cutting hair.
You have a great environment to bring him into. I mean, there's no better place for a kid, right?
You know, I'd pick him up take him to school still, nursery. So I would start at, let's say, 5 a.m. in the morning. I'd go cut hair. I'd finish at like 7:30 in the morning. I'd go home. I'd get him ready, you know, brush his teeth, put his clothes on, take him to his nursery, then go back to the barbershop, then go pick him up at 5 a.m. from the barbershop, bring him to the barbershop, then work for another hour, 2 hours, then take him home, make sure I put him to bed. And even most nights, I'd make sure I put him to bed. So I was still trying to juggle, because my focus, I used to say that make sure your priority is your priority, because it's easy to say, oh, these are my priorities, but are they actually your priorities? So I had to make sure that I was doing everything, working hard how I had to do, but also making sure that I was very present in my child and now / my children's lives, because with my younger one who's 2, since then things have eased up. I work less anyway, so he's getting more time.
Right.
And then he had a lockdown. He had a lockdown with me.
Yes, that's
you know,
great.
so he got that 8 months
right.
time with me. So yeah, that's why when I'm thinking about the other shop, yeah, I'm just kind of like, I just know that this isn't life. And you know, people talk about the next generation. I'm just like, listen, they might not be interested in the shop, and they might be interested in, and they might run it into the ground, and then it's like, you worked all this hard for what? For them to run it to the ground? Or it's kind of like, okay, great, you get your name everywhere. Cider Cuts is everywhere. It's this big brand. But what does it mean? And people are like, you know, that's your legacy. But I'm saying, you know, I'm not trying to be crude or whatever it is, but
Who cares?
Like, you see that whole legacy. So what?
Yeah, I know.
When I pass away, I cannot live in that legacy. So what? Cider Cuts is everywhere. what does that mean? What did I do when I was alive?
Yeah, I don't know what
You know?
I don't get that thought process either. I mean, the legacy thing is weird. I don't get it. You're gonna be dead, bro. Who cares?
I
Who
can't
cares?
experience it.
I think it's like, you know what I think? It's like a very deeply psychological thing that society has ingrained to people so they continue the hamster wheel, so they continue working without stopping. And then when they get off the hamster wheel with whatever, $1 million and 10 companies or whatever, $100 million, 10 companies, they realize, oh, wait, I'm an old hamster now. Like, this is great and all, but I kind of took the best years of my life and put my head down. And there may be some people that enjoy that, but I can't be sold for it.
There has to be a balance. And I've been speaking to my friends about this, but I've been saying to them, some of my friends which are now doing well in life, and I'm like, and they keep talking about grinding. And because they see the way I work, right, I'm always having to tell people, no, I'm working hard, but understand I'm still doing this, I'm still doing that. And also understand that I'm cutting down with the amount I'm working as well, because I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I don't want them to be deceived into this whole, grind. Because I said to them, look, if you work hard now and then, you get to 60, 70 years old, whatever it is, and then you're kind of like, actually, yes, I can enjoy my life now. I said, one, God forbid, we don't even know if we're going to be living then. Two, are we going to have the full health and fitness to enjoy the things we want to do, which we could enjoy a lot more now?
Of course.
So
you can't buy back time. You can get money, but you can't buy time.
And that's why I like there has to be a balance for me. And that's basically the long answer as to why.
Yeah, we went down a rabbit hole.
The whole thing about opening up another shop is the thing that I'm just like, I'm not too sure about, just because, like...
Don't let them talk. Don't let them convince you. Make the right call. You follow your gut. Don't let these other people...
I could open up another shop, but I always tell people, if I open up another shop, this whole shop I've done by myself. So no one owns any piece of Slider Cuts. I own it fully, 100%. I borrowed loads of money. I didn't take no investments, but I borrowed loads of money, high interest. I paid back all the people with high interest loans instead so I could own it all. But I said, if I was to do it again, now I'm not only taking investors, I'm taking partners. I want people to take the weight. I don't want to be doing anything close to what I've had to do with this first shop. So if people want, I keep saying people want, and I've had people come to me say, they're willing to put the money in basically. And I'm like, yeah, that's the money's not the issue. It's the time.
It's the time, yes. You're very different from the last guest or second last guest interview. This is why it's so interesting to me. The second last person I had on in his late 30s kind of sold everything and lives on a boat. He took his family and he lives on a boat. And that's his life. He wakes up in the morning. He decides, okay, he's from Ireland. He's like, I want to go, I don't know. We'll set up a trip to France or something like that. Takes his family, lives off the boat. And he has like a little bit of passive income and a little bit of like internet kind of business stuff. And he lives very minimal. He's basically found a way to reduce his cost of living to like, I think he said it was like £400 a month, or I don't know what. It was something really cheap. Nice. Because on a boat, you don't need electricity. He goes to a place where you don't need air conditioning, climate stuff. And I thought it was really fascinating. I'm like, this is another possibility that I never even came across my mind that it can, like, it would be tangible. So there are some ideas, I guess. If you want to, if the second shop falls through and you pivot into the boat, they're gonna look back at this moment right here.
The thing is, I know my wife would be on it.
Really? Yeah.
She definitely would be.
He bought a boat for like 10,000. It was a fascinating conversation. He bought a boat for like £10,000. Figured out his plan over like 3 years, and then he just did it one day. He learned how to sail, and off he went.
I know a few people who live on boats.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because I live near the river, so we've got friends who live on boats. So.
Fair enough. There you go. So you already have it in. You're already 1 foot in the door. What else we didn't talk about the celebrity thing. Can I ask you how that comes about? Because I feel like if I don't ask you that, people are like, what the fuck, bro? You had a guy that's cut hair for LeBron and you didn't ask him anything about that.
Okay.
So how did you even get those opportunities? How does that come about?
They come through different means, but ultimately they've come from, being dedicated to my craft, working hard, putting out a good image of myself, wherever I've gone or whatever interactions I had. Back to, you're always in an interview. Some of these opportunities have come from some of the most random things. And I know I don't try to make it over like spiritual or anything kind of like, this kind of like, he's just, that whole kind of like, just work hard and just
manifest it. Yeah. Believe and you can cheat.
Yeah. It's not that. What I am saying though is that you're always in an interview. So if I just give you a brief of like some of these people who I've cut in as example, who you've named, right? How I got these opportunities, or these jobs came around. Let's just say J. Cole as example. That came around because my sister-in-law had a friend who she was doing a gift for, and said to me, "Oh, can you cut my friend's hair, please? I'm just trying to give him something as a gift." I said, "All right, cool." So he came in. She said she'll pay for it, which, just for the record, she never paid. Just to put it out there, I never received that money. But it's what family do. So he came in. I cut his hair.
That's so funny.
He isn't anybody. He's just this random guy, So I cut his hair. He liked it. That was it. He came back to me like about 6 months later, asked me for a haircut. I gave him a haircut, and just talking as normal, whatever it is. He isn't anybody. There isn't anything special about him. This and that. He just. No offense, I'm not saying he looked underwhelming.
I know what you're saying. Just a regular.
It's not like he's got Gucci belts on and this and that.
Right.
He's got nothing. But I cut his hair and gave him the service he deserved because you're just in my chair. That was it. Nothing to it. A few months later, I think maybe 6 months later, a few months later, I randomly get this phone call from him, and he says, "I'm with J. Cole and he needs a haircut. He's flown into the country. The barber that normally cuts him in the country, they are basically not able to get through to him. Can you come cut his hair?"
Wow. I'm
like, okay, cool. So I go and cut his hair. I end up cutting his hair a few times. I think it's funny enough, don't hold me to this, but I think I'm actually the last person to cut his hair.
Really? That's right. He's got the long hair now. Yeah.
I think I'm actually the last person to cut his hair.
Wow.
Which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
After you, he's like, "I'm never getting a haircut again." Oh, man. You can't put that on the website.
So, yeah, and that came from that. So that came from the record. My sister-in-law asked me to do a favor, me doing it properly, cutting his hair. Then suddenly he calls me another day. Let's use another one. Lebron James. Years back, a random guy walks into the barber shop and he wants a haircut. He's this tall, dark-skinned guy. He comes in, and what's funny about this story is, at this time, I remember it was a Wednesday, and I had about 7 people in the shop waiting for me. There was 2 other barbers working, and they had like 1 or 2 people, and they just kept on stopping in between haircuts, in the haircut, going outside, one smoking a cigarette, the other was taking a break. It's just like, and I remember being like, I've got all these people waiting for me, I've got all these appointments, right? And I used to always be like, guys, like, can you get to the customers waiting? Because my focus has always been like, I want to make sure the customers get their haircut, So I end up, this guy who comes in last, I end up getting to him, right? And I'm like, cool, I'll cut him. So I cut his hair. We don't even really speak, just what do you want done? Can I get 1 level, whatever it is, this and that. Cool, cut his hair. That's it. He leaves. A year later, he comes back. And now he's waiting for me because he liked the haircut I gave him a year ago. So then now we start talking a bit more. I'm like, "Oh, how you doing? Blah, 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 this and that." It's kind of like, "Oh, remember me?" And like, I've got a good memory, so I remember people. So I was just like, yeah, blah, blah, I remember. And I'm just like, "Yeah, what are you doing here?" Because I can hear he's got a slight American accent. He's like, "Oh, yeah, you know what?" He's like, "Oh, I play in the NBA. I'm a basketball player. I play in the NBA." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, for who?" He goes, "Oh, I play for the Houston Rockets." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I'm like, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "Oh, I used to live in London. I got a scholarship when I was 15 to America. I played professionally." He was 26 or 25 at this time. I played professionally in the basketball. I said, "All right, cool. Great." So he cuts for me. So every year when he came back to see his family in London, he came and got a haircut for me. But we fast forward to the Olympics when all the Americans are coming over. He plays in the NBA. So they're looking for a barber in London. And he's just like, "Oh, yeah, come to my barber in London." And that's it. So then I end up cutting the whole basketball team with Dwayne Wade, although he wasn't playing at that time, but he just came over. So, I ended up cutting him, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, funny, when I cut him, actually, he hadn't even signed his pro contract. He was just signing his pro contract. So he was coming from, I don't know what it is, the pre-pro
NCAA or the college basketball?
Whatever the thing is before you get the pro.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I remember at the time, he was getting all these deals, all these people were approaching him and, whoever it is, whichever brands and all that stuff there. So I ended up cutting all of them, right? And that just came from me cutting to this random guy. So when people ask me the story, I always have to break it down to them because they always feel like there's some kind of like special thing you did. But then it is obviously things like social media. People have seen me on social media.
It is a special thing, but it is a special thing. It's an accumulation of little moments that is built up to that. It's not, maybe people think there's an escalator to success, but it's that little bit of the little chipping it every single day until you eventually get an opportunity like that. It's like you said, you show up every day and you're trying to be the best you in front of everyone. So eventually, just by sheer numbers, you're going to land a moment, an opportunity like that in regardless, whatever field you're in. Maybe it won't be to that extreme where it's like LeBron, but it might be whatever that is for your field.
Yeah.
You will get recognized essentially in one way or another.
Yeah, if you do the things you're supposed to do, and it's more than just actually putting up a post on Instagram.
Right.
It's it's everything. It's the Instagram. It's you. It's, it's your promotion. It's everything, because it's just like, then there's other things, social media. People have come to me from social media. I remember, a few people who were watching my social media for months before they called me. Because also people got to realize as well that some of the things people also want is trust. So there's, some of these people are cut. You're going to their houses. Right. You can see them argue misses or not. There's also like an element of trust. Of like, can they trust you? Are you going to steal something? Are you
a weirdo? Right.
There's all of that kind of stuff there. So when they're interviewing you looking at your character.
Yes, of course.
Sometimes, and people will do this thing where they don't realize it, where, and it's happened with me, where they do something and they talk. So I remember this person, right? I want to change the story a little bit just because it's a real story. But long and short of it, or make it like, I'm just going to strip it down a little bit. Basically, they were just doing things where they were they're basically robbing, stealing stuff, right? Basically. And then they asked to come in on something with me. And all I could think to myself was, you're a thief. In my head, all I'm thinking
right. Right.
And also this person would be like, they would just say, "Oh, but I wouldn't steal from you, though."
Yeah, that's not what I want to hear. That's not reassuring.
I don't trust you. You're a thief.
I'm a murderer, but I will murder you, so we're cool, right?
Yeah. And that's where it comes back to the whole thing of like, you're always in the interview. You cannot change that now and suddenly interview for me now. I've already interviewed you. I've studied your life, without directly studying it. It's just like, you're a bit, I don't really want to mix with you and stuff because you're a thief.
Yeah. Of course, that's what you're known for. That's what, yeah.
So
can't fix
and it's
that.
the same thing with people. If you're someone as an example who's just constantly blurting out people's business online, then suddenly you realize there'll be a lot of people who be like, you might be a good barber, but I don't really want to mess with you because I don't want you talking about what's going on in my household.
I mean, I think that's a great place to end it. We did, believe it or not, an hour and 10 minutes almost. So I really
go for another hour.
I flew by. I had a great time. Anything you want to plug? Anything you're working on? Obviously, the book. I'll leave a link down below for anyone that's interested.
Yeah, get the book. I've written this book because it's really close to heart, and it's a cheap book. Like the price point, it costs £5.
It was 11 Canadian for me. It was it's a paper book. It's cheap.
Yeah, I made sure it's cheap because the people I'm trying to talk to and reach out to aren't the richer demographic. So I made sure it was really dirt cheap so that people could afford it, because I want people to have this information. To the point, even I say to people, like, even if you couldn't afford the book, if you generally can't afford the book, I'll give you the book for free, because I really want you to have the information.
Right. I mean, a million people that are doing, behaving better or better people because of that is more valuable than the extra few dollars you might lose or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Mark, beautiful conversation. If you ever want to come back, you're always welcome. When you become a movie star, I'll make sure to update the title of the video. We had a Hollywood actor on here.
If I accept it, I have to reach.
Allegedly, yeah, and there's nothing confirmed. I didn't disclose anything. But yeah, once again, thanks so much for your time.
All right, thank you very much for having me.